I still can't walk past a parking garage without feeling that cold dread curl in my stomach. It's been months, but the smell of concrete and exhaust fumes just instantly takes me back to that moment. That utterly paralyzing moment when I saw the number. $100,632.45. That was the final bill, staring back at me from a cracked ATM receipt in my hand. A receipt that suddenly felt heavier than a gold ingot. I have to ask you and be honest when you comment below. If a guy you barely knew, a guy who presented himself as this charming, successful traveler, suddenly vanished and left you holding the bag for a six-figure debt, a debt that he accrued with a vehicle he owned, would you have done what I did to get him to pay? Was I wrong for turning his luxurious life into a waking public nightmare? Seriously, tell me, because some days I still doubt it. It all started so simply, so typically for a modern romance. I met Liam on a flight from LA to New York. I was crammed into an aisle seat trying to finish a report on my laptop, and he was in the window seat, looking every bit the suave, well-traveled businessman, crisp shirt, expensive watch, and a smile that felt like the sun breaking through clouds. He introduced himself as an investment consultant who spent his life bouncing between high-stakes deals in major cities. He was handsome, confident, and he made me laugh, genuinely laugh, for the first time in what felt like a very long time. By the time the flight landed, we had exchanged numbers, and he had promised to call me as soon as he was back in Chicago, which was where I lived, and where he just happened to have a major client meeting scheduled for the following week. I'm a marketing manager for a small tech firm in the city. I'm independent, I'm not easily impressed, but Liam had a way of making me feel special, seen. When he called, I was already excited. The first few dates were straight out of a movie. Rooftop bars, private gallery viewings, dinners where he'd effortlessly order the perfect bottle of wine. He told me he was only in town for 2 months, wrapping up this major deal before moving on to Singapore, which somehow made the whole thing feel more intense, more immediate, like a beautiful temporary bubble. It was during that second week that the favor came up. We were having dinner at a fantastic Italian place in River North, and he was casually telling me about his chaotic travel schedule. He mentioned that he had rented a luxury SUV, a massive, shiny black Cadillac Escalade for his time in the city, but that the logistics of constantly moving it were a headache. His penthouse rental, and yes, he had a penthouse, only allowed for one assigned spot, and he had another car he was using for his day-to-day. He asked if I knew of any good, secure, long-term parking near my own apartment building in Streeterville. I didn't, but I had an idea. My apartment building had a very exclusive underground parking facility, usually reserved for residents, but I knew the building manager, a sweet man named Tom, pretty well. Liam immediately latched onto the idea. He offered me a ridiculous amount of cash, $5,000, just to talk to Tom and see if I could secure a spot for his Escalade for a few weeks, until his client's situation stabilized. He made it sound like a complicated business requirement, a security necessity. I hesitated. It felt a little too easy, a little too much like I was abusing my good relationship with Tom. But $5,000 is $5,000. More importantly, I liked Liam. I wanted to help him. I wanted to be his partner in crime, his fixer. So I did it. I talked to Tom. I spun a story about a family friend who was visiting for a month and needed a secure spot for their large vehicle. Tom, being the accommodating person he was, agreed, on the condition that the car would be registered under my name temporarily in the system, just for liability and paperwork purposes. The rate was steep, about $200 a month, which was normal for that prime location, and I told Liam about the arrangement. He barely blinked. He handed me the $5,000 in crisp hundreds right there, smiled that breathtaking smile and said, "You are a lifesaver. I owe you everything." He even joked that he'd be so busy he'd probably forget the car was even there. The next day he dropped off the Escalade. It was enormous and immaculate, and it took up most of the space. I remember thinking how strange it was that such a successful man would need my help with something so mundane. But hey, people are complicated, and I accepted his explanation that his business required discretion. He handed me a single key fob to the vehicle, purely for the purpose of moving it if the parking attendants ever needed to, and he signed a simple, one-page agreement I found online, a boilerplate car storage agreement, basically saying he was the owner, I was the temporary storage provider, and he would retrieve the car by the end of the 2 months. The whole exchange felt so casual, so routine. I felt a little rush of excitement like I was part of his glamorous high-stakes world. The next few weeks were lovely. Liam was charming, attentive, and incredibly generous. But then, as the 2-month mark approached, things started to get weird. First, it was the missed calls, then the canceled dates, then the increasingly short and vague texts. His business deal was running into trouble, he said. He had to fly to Miami unexpectedly, then Zurich. The calls became less frequent, the texts colder. I started to feel that familiar sinking feeling in my chest that comes with realizing a relationship is quietly, disappointingly, collapsing. I was hurt, but I'm an adult. I figured it was just one of those things. The worst part was that big black Escalade sitting in the secure spot, a constant silent reminder of him. I texted him a week after he was supposed to retrieve the car, just a polite reminder. His response was, "So sorry, still tied up in Europe. Don't worry about the parking. Keep the 5K for the trouble. I'll be back in Chicago in a month, Max. I'll get it then." A month. Okay. Fine. It was annoying, but I had the $5,000, which more than covered the parking fee, and my life was moving on. But then a month passed and another. I texted him again, this time with a bit more urgency. Nothing. I tried calling. His number went straight to a generic voicemail. A week later, the number was disconnected. I felt a sharp, cold wave of panic wash over me. It wasn't just that he had ghosted me. It was the car. The car that was registered in the building system under my name. I went down to the garage and stared at the Escalade. It was a massive, expensive problem parked in my life. I started doing some digging. The name he gave me, Liam Sterling, turned out to be a dead end. No matching records in the typical business databases I knew how to check. The investment firm he claimed to work for? Didn't exist. The penthouse? It was an Airbnb he had rented month to month. Everything was a lie. He wasn't just a flake. He was a phantom. I was furious, yes, but mostly terrified. I went straight to Tom, the building manager, and told him the truth, or at least the truth as I knew it, that Liam had disappeared, and the car was still there. Tom was sympathetic but firm. The car was a massive liability. It was taking up a prime paid-for space. He had already sent a notification to the license plate on file, the one registered under my name, stating that the car had to be moved, or it would begin accruing punitive storage fees. The $200 monthly rate had expired. The new daily rate was $500. That's when the clock officially started ticking on the nightmare. I drove the car out of the building. Using the key fob Liam had given me, I managed to get it out and parked it on a nearby public street, where it was immediately ticketed for being parked during street cleaning hours. I got the ticket, $50, and paid it myself. I had to get this thing out of my life, fast. I called the Chicago Police Department. They told me that because the car wasn't stolen and there was no current crime associated with it, it was legally registered to an owner who had simply abandoned it on private property, which was a civil matter. They couldn't do anything except maybe tow it to an impound lot, which would just shift the financial burden from the private garage to the city. And eventually, the tow and storage fees would still legally default to the name on the building's registration papers. Mine. I called a tow company myself. They said they couldn't legally tow a car parked on public property unless it was impeding traffic or authorized by the city. I was stuck. I was officially the reluctant, unwilling, and terrified temporary owner of a black Cadillac Escalade, which was slowly, inexorably, racking up debt. I tried to sell the car. That was my first thought. Liquidate the asset. But I couldn't. I didn't have the title. I had the keys, but no legal proof of ownership. I tracked down the real registered owner using the VIN number, which I found hidden on the windshield. It was a major luxury car rental and leasing company based in Miami. I called them, explained the whole convoluted, humiliating story. Their legal department was utterly unhelpful. They confirmed that a man using the name Liam Sterling had leased the car for 3 months and paid the first month's lease payment, but had missed the subsequent 2 payments. They had already filed a police report for unauthorized possession and failure to return the vehicle, a civil matter which was now becoming a criminal one for him. But they said they couldn't just come and get the car. They were going to wait for the police to find it, tow it to an impound lot as part of the criminal investigation into Liam, and then reclaim it. And in the meantime, The remaining 2 months of the lease plus late fees plus the cost of retrieval, plus the potential damage costs, all of that was on their dime, but they had absolutely no obligation to me. I was just the unfortunate victim who happened to have their abandoned property. It was a dead end. I felt this intense building pressure. Every day the car sat there, it was a ticking time bomb, and I had no way to defuse it. I couldn't get rid of it. I couldn't sell it. I couldn't even park it safely without fearing more fines. I took the car back to the public street spot, paid a couple more tickets, and decided I had to track down the only person who could fix this. Liam Sterling, or whatever his real name was. I spent the next 2 weeks becoming a private investigator. I had a few scraps of information, a photo, the fake name, a disconnected phone number, and the Miami car rental company. It was the photo that finally cracked it. I used a reverse image search and a series of deep dive social media searches. I went down the rabbit hole, and I finally found him. Not as Liam Sterling, but as Michael Thorne, a wealthy entrepreneur from Texas, whose social media was a glossy testament to a life of luxury. Private jets, exotic locations, and ironically, a vast collection of high-end cars. I found his real company, a legitimate, successful tech logistics firm. I found his wife, and I found a very recent photo of him on a yacht in the Mediterranean, looking utterly serene and untouched by the chaos he'd left behind. That's when the hurt turned to cold, burning rage. He hadn't just used me for sex or company. He had used me as a parking stooge, a shield, to hide a vehicle that was likely a part of some other, larger scheme. The total parking bill at my building, by this point, was over $8,000, and the car rental company was calling me, threatening me with legal action for my interference in their recovery process, even though I was trying to help. They didn't care about my side of the story. They just saw the person who was holding the key. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. I was facing an escalating financial nightmare for a debt that wasn't mine, created by a ghost who was currently sipping champagne on a yacht, and the law was giving me zero recourse. I could either swallow the debt, admit defeat, and try to somehow wash my hands of this escalade, which would have involved me paying thousands in towing and storage fees for the rental company. Or I could make him pay. I could make him feel just a tiny fraction of the panic and humiliation he had so casually inflicted on me. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have taken the high road and let him get away with it? Or would you have gone for the public, personal, and spectacular revenge? I chose revenge. I chose the spectacular. I realized that the only leverage I had was that black Escalade, and the fact that Michael Thorne, aka Liam Sterling, was a respectable, married, successful entrepreneur with a reputation to protect. My plan was simple but devastating. I called the rental company again. I told them I was taking the car to an impound lot as they had suggested, but I was going to do one more thing first. I got professional-grade vinyl decals made, not just any decals. I had giant fluorescent pink letters printed that covered the entire sides of the massive SUV. On one side, it read in huge, inescapable lettering, "Abandoned by Michael Thorne, aka Liam Sterling. Tell his wife I said hi." On the other side, it read, "Parking bill, 106 to 32.45, deadbeat cheater." I made the numbers up, a dramatic exaggeration of the actual $8,000 bill, but I figured, go big or go home. I put the actual total owed to the rental company, around $15,000 at the time, in smaller print underneath just to add a veneer of legality. I made sure to take the car to a professional shop to have the decals applied, so they were absolutely perfect and impossible to ignore. The final touch was printing out multiple copies of the fake parking receipt, the $100,000 one, and taping them all over the windows of the car. It was a masterpiece of public shaming. Then I didn't take it to an impound lot. I took it straight to the entrance of his company's headquarters, a glass tower in the heart of the financial district, and parked it directly across the street, in the busiest, most visible spot I could find. I keyed the keys into the tow company's hands immediately after that, giving them the location and telling them they had 24 hours to pick it up, or I'd report the car abandoned on public property. Then I walked away. The phone calls started almost immediately. I didn't even make it 3 blocks. First, it was an unknown number which I let go to voicemail. The message was a sputtering, rage-filled tirade from Michael Thorne himself. "What the hell do you think you're doing? You psycho! You have 20 minutes to get that thing out of there or I'm calling my lawyers. You have ruined me." I smiled. Ruined him? He had almost ruined me. Next, it was a call from a lawyer. He was calm, professional, and threatening. He demanded I remove the slanderous and defamatory decals. I told him I'd be happy to. All I needed was for his client, Mr. Thorne, to wire me the $8,000 in accumulated parking fees, plus the cost of the decals and my emotional distress. I arbitrarily settled on $50,000, a nice round number. The lawyer choked on the phone. $50,000? For parking? I calmly explained that a lie costs more than the truth and his client had lied a lot. The best part? The car was gone within 2 hours. The rental company, having been alerted to the car's whereabouts, showed up with their own tow truck and a very embarrassed representative. They didn't care about the decals. They cared about recovering their asset before it became a viral sensation. But they did take photos. Lots of photos. The confrontation, the climax of my revenge, came 3 days later. Michael Thorne's wife, a woman I had never met, found me. She didn't call. She showed up at my office. She was devastated, but not about the car. She was devastated about the betrayal. She was holding a printout of the Escalade, the one with the huge neon pink letters which had apparently been circulating around her husband's office and their social circle like wildfire. She didn't want to fight me. She wanted to know the truth. I told her everything. The plane, the dating, the favor, the ghosting, the escalating debt. She listened, her face pale, and when I was finished, she just stood up, thanked me, and walked out. I never heard from her again, but I saw the news a few weeks later. Michael Thorne was stepping down from his company, citing personal family reasons. The aftermath for me was strangely anticlimactic. The rental company, perhaps out of pity or perhaps because they didn't want the spectacle of the decaled Escalade becoming a legal exhibit, quietly dropped any claims against me. They recovered their car, which was all they really wanted. As for the money, I never got the full $50,000, of course. But a week after his wife showed up, an unmarked envelope arrived at my door with a cashier's check for $10,000. It had no sender name, only a note scrawled on a blank piece of paper. "For the trouble. Now leave us alone." It was the $10,000 for the parking debt, the tickets, and the cost of the decals, with a little extra thrown in. I cashed it immediately. That $10,000 wasn't just money. It was confirmation that I had won. I had stared down a rich, arrogant liar who thought he could use me as a convenient place to hide his life's messy consequences, and I made him pay a public, personal, and financial price. I learned that day that sometimes when the system won't help you, you have to create your own justice, and you have to be willing to be a little unhinged to do it. The memory of that bright, obnoxious pink lettering on that enormous black SUV is still the most satisfying thing I've ever done. It taught me a powerful lesson about knowing your worth and the incredible power of a very public, very embarrassing act of defiance. And that's the whole crazy, expensive story. If you stuck with me through this entire ordeal, I truly appreciate you letting me vent about this whole mess. Let me know in the comments if you think Michael Thorne got what he deserved for his spectacular deception. Like this video if you were on my side and believe I was right to hit him where it hurt the most, his reputation and his wallet. Subscribe for more stories like this, and believe me, I have a few more that are just as wild. Share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. I want to know if you think my $100,000 parking nightmare was worth the $10,000 payout and the sweet, sweet revenge. I'll see you all in the next story.